This is the Pulse on Human Design. Welcome back to the Pulse on Human Design. And if this is your first time with us, then welcome. I have a special guest today, Kathy Bochonko. And Kathy has been with Bodygraph Chart since almost the very beginning. She is a 6'2" emotional projector. And we're going to be talking about all things human design and business today. So welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for having me. Hi, Vicki.
So talk to me about your human design.
Well, would you like to see it?
I'd love to see it.
I have this fun thing I did. Look at that.
So cool.
Yay. So there's my chart, and it's customized with my own design from Bodygraph. So
Lovely. So if you are listening to this podcast, then what you would also probably want to know about Kathy is that she has 3 motors defined. So because she's a projector, obviously she does not have a defined sacral, but she has a defined root, a defined emotional solar plexus, and a defined will, if my eyes are not deceiving me, with
yes.
all of the gates defined in your defined will. Wowzer.
Yes. I was a willful person my whole life.
I guess so.
Don't tell me I can't.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. So
Right?
how does your projectorishness play out in your business?
Well, I really had to realize that just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Mm.
And, because that whole not knowing when enough is enough and not attaching my value to being able to do enough, right? So that has been a big part, and building in the whole idea of cycles of rest and being able to create systems that allow me to do things more efficiently and knowing when to say no to invitations. So
What did you do before human design?
Well, my main career was retail fashion. The most recent thing that I did was I worked for Lucky Brand Jeans, which if you guys know, yeah.
Lucky
And so,
Brand.
and it was funny. I was just talking about this the other day. I had people who used to call me the denim whisperer and, or the denim diva, the jean whisperer, or the denim diva. That's what it was. Cause I had a really, a skill for being able to talk women off the ledge in the fitting room is what I called it, because we all know how hard it is to buy jeans, and people would start hating on themselves.
Yeah.
And so I would really, was able to help people take a step back and see the beauty in their body and not get caught, and just realize they just didn't have they had the wrong fit, right? And I think that's how human design works in a lot of ways, right? Sometimes we're just trying to fit in the wrong jeans.
That's a really good analogy. A really good analogy. So in your human design business or other businesses you've had, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made? Now we know there are no mistakes, but if you had to pick one.
I don't know that because I'm big, as a 6th line, I've really learned that 3rd line phase never really goes away. And every business, no matter what your design is always 3rd line. So I never wish away a mistake because I learned so much from what doesn't work, right? So I would say listening to other people's opinions too much, not trusting myself. That whole just because I can doesn't mean I should, and letting people tell me I should, or even more so, letting people tell me I shouldn't. Like just because it doesn't work for 90% of the people doesn't mean it isn't the perfect thing for me. So really learning to trust myself. And that's been my biggest, like you'll see if you follow me, my hashtag everywhere I use is radical self-trust. When you really know and trust yourself, everything changes. Even the mistakes, even the problems become opportunities. And just being able to sit in them and say, what is this bringing me? Where is the opportunity in this fiasco today? Right.
And some days it is a fiasco in your business, no matter what your human design type. And it feels like to me, sometimes in the human design community, we miss that little nugget for ourselves. Like we're so focused on like, we have to do this business thing the way that we're supposed to do it. I'm putting that in air quotes. And it's like the whole point of knowing our human design is like, we don't have to do it anyway. We just do it our way. That
Yeah,
said, there are things. Go
letting
ahead.
go of the attachment of what we think it's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah.
Because if all we're thinking about is what we think the destination's going to look like at the end, we miss the whole journey.
Hmm. And that's
So,
where we unpack all the goodness
mm-hmm,
about ourselves, really, as we go through our human design.
mm-hmm, yeah,
So, how about the thing you're most proud of in your business?
I'd say my podcast.
Mm. And how did that come about? I think this is a fun story.
So I have a human design Facebook group I was invited to take over. And I actually feel like that was a really cool thing because I entered into that relationship very correctly. I'm saying in air quotes, as human design teaches us, because I took my time to decide if I wanted to do it. And then I kept trying to figure out how to make it my own. And I started having these conversations in the group that started with a conversation with my sister, who is my person. My sister is
Mm.
like I don't, she's my person who just gets me, right? And so she lives in Thailand, and she has
Mm.
exposure to all these really interesting things, and we have these really great deep conversations. And her social media thing is unapologetically Barbara, so that gives you an idea of what her personality is a little bit like. And she would say, well, what would people think do other people have conversations like this? What would people think if they listened to the weird stuff we talk about? So we decided to have a public conversation in the group, and then that evolved into Real Human Design Stories podcast that really just came from people kept referring to these conversations as my podcast. They really liked them. Oh, I love your podcast. I love your podcast. And I was like, well, it's not a podcast. And then finally I got into this whole thing of like, well, maybe it should be. Somebody even said, what, you should make it a podcast. I was invited a few times, like it was encouraged. And there was this voice in my head that kept saying, who wants to listen to
Mm.
me? And I think one of the coolest things is it's come so full circle, because I had Karen Curry Parker on the podcast, who's the creator of Quantum Human Design. And you and I have both studied with her, but for those listening, and when I talked to this woman who has so many people who just like look to her for so much wisdom and guidance, and she talked about how she has a piece of paper next to her computer that she looks at all the time that says, people want to hear what you have to say.
Wow.
And when she read that and said that, I was like, oh, wow, even Karen has that voice in her head that says, who do you think you are? Nobody
Hmm.
cares, right? So and having these conversations with people that I get to ask them all kinds of questions. And there was a voice in my head that kept saying, well, you're spending money and time to do all this, but I would spend so much money to talk to all these people individually, right? So like I had to get rid of all those things that told me it was crazy. So,
And
but
now you
it's
have all of these assets in your business with
yeah,
all of these episodes.
yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to someone just starting out in their business? A piece of advice you'd give someone starting their human design business?
Oh, I would say trust yourself
Mm.
first and foremost. And that doesn't mean um, you won't make mistakes, but embrace the mistakes. Like follow, I hate to be um, trite, but follow your strategy and your authority. Do things that feel right in you, the way you're designed to make decisions. And then when things don't work out the way you thought they were going to work out, it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not still part of your path, right? Because how many times do we make a wrong turn and then see a really cool restaurant we didn't know existed in our neighborhood, or all these things, right? That's how life is. So get rid of the idea that it's all going to be a straight line, because that's boring as all hell.
Hmm. And Kathy did say, and I'm just going to highlight this for you if you're listening, Kathy did say, do the things.
Do the
And I think
thing.
that's something like for me in
Right.
business, oftentimes it's like business is business. No matter what your strategy and authority, no matter what your human design, you have to do the business things if you're building a business. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said it beautifully, you can do them in your own way. And we all should, even though I hate that word, be doing them in our own way. That's the opportunity for us. And we need to do the things if we want to grow a business. That's
Yes.
the cold, hard truth. Okay, so what kind of tools do you use? And I know you use Bodygraph Chart software. What's your favorite tools that you use? You're using this cool tool to show your human design chart.
This is a little tool I'm using that's just a free add-on app on Zoom called Prezi, Prezi. So that's fun. I use Bodygraph Chart in so many different ways. I love that I'm a very visual person in human design speak. Outer visions is my cognition. And so I love that I can have my colors in my chart.
Mm.
My brand colors are really my colors. And I use ChatGPT a lot. I use it to kind of bounce ideas. I think it helps because I kind of, in a lot of ways, process as a self-projected projector. And in the past, I drove people crazy. I probably still drive some people crazy, always having to talk through whatever I'm thinking. And I can now do it with ChatGPT. So I'm thinking of doing this. What are some ways that blah, blah, blah? I'm thinking this. And then I realize as I'm asking it the questions that half the time I don't even listen to anything it says, but it just gives me an outlet for somebody. It's not somebody, but something to, in some ways, respond to almost. But, it's not a sacral response. It's a life response. So, yeah.
That is an
So, and then
excellent
I
idea for
also,
ChatGPT. I never thought of that for a
yeah.
projector or for someone who needs to verbally process. That's so smart.
Yeah, and like right now, I'm working on a new concept with helping people to kind of create a cohesiveness between their outward expression and their inward self. Like, do you present yourself in a way that's in alignment with who you are today? You've done all this work on the inside, and do you still have the same hairstyle you had in high school? I mean, some of us, not saying that that's a bad thing, but do you present yourself as the authentic expression of who you are in a way that feels good to you, right? And so I've been working with this, and one of the things is coming up with these words, and this is based on someone else's idea, but this Alison Bornstein uses 3 words to define your style, and they each have a certain meaning, but I was trying to get more nuances of words, so I'll ask ChatGPT, I'm thinking of a word that means this, but what are some other ones that are close? And it'll give me a whole bunch of them. I'll be like, no, 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 not all of these. I don't like any of that. Oh, this one, right? So it's just helpful. It's better than Google search in some ways like that. So
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you're saying. So I'm going to go to a conversation that you're having on Facebook right now. And we'll just bring our listeners along with it because I think it's a good conversation to have. And you went there. So we'll go there with this. What was the quote that you shared about
so
being
I
seen?
watched I watched this little TEDx talk, and I don't remember the name of it right now, but we can look it up and put it in the notes if you want, because it was really fun. And the woman said, we're terrified of being noticed, but dying to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And she did this great little video about how the answer to loneliness may be in your closet. And I've actually heard this a couple times recently in different people I follow on YouTube that are not in the human design field or in Instagram, where they've said, just especially as women of a certain age, as we get into middle age, a lot of women in the past, especially, we just kind of become, we turn very beige and navy, black, and we just kind of disappear, right?
Yeah.
And we're the crones. We're the wisdom. The wisdom is, and a lot of people think of that as a negative word. That is the wise woman in the woods who has all the answers, right? So having something that makes you feel approachable, right? And a lot of times, what do we say to strangers if we want to say something? We comment on something about their appearance. And that can, when we're feeling really lonely and we're walking out and you look fabulous, right? You can walk out and someone will be like, oh my God, I love your shoes. Look at how cute that is together, right? This woman goes out on every Tuesday dressed in like almost a costume that's late 1950s Jackie Kennedy looking, right? And she does it for fun, right? And so, not saying you have to go to that extreme, but I will say that when I'm wearing something that's really fun, that's when people say stuff. like,
Mhm.
oh, look at your shoes, right? I have these floral keds that people will often comment and be like, they're very surprised when I have on like a dress and then they look and see I'm wearing something like that, right? So yeah. So being okay with being noticed so that people have an opportunity to see you. Because if
Mhm.
you don't have conversation, how can people even know you?
And that can go into every aspect of your business. Like there's so many times that we work with people or we see people in the human design community even that really don't want to be seen. It's like, how are you going to build a business if you can't be seen? So
Mhm.
obviously standing in your design is the best way that you're going to be seen. But then I love this layer of your image going on it as well. And it's not a superficial thing. It's just like who are you showing to the world through your design, through the way that you're presenting yourself, all of those things is important for your business. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see what you do with this because I really feel like you're going to do something with this.
And it's funny because this is a perfect example of my idea of radical self-trust. Because it was probably 2 years ago, I had a conversation with Robin Wynn, which I don't know if you know who she is. She's a
Oh,
human
the
design
book. She wrote a
author. She's
book.
written a
Yeah.
bunch of great books. I highly recommend her book on the profiles is my favorite, but the centers, she's got great books. Um, Anyway, we were having a conversation. The first conversation I had with her, I was considering doing something with her because she was helping people to do something with human design that wasn't human design.
Mm.
And I was considering doing something back then with fashion, but I just didn't know what it was going to be. Like I knew there was something there to it, but what I realized is that like oftentimes there's like a spiral to life, right? You have an idea, but its time has not come. And
Mhm.
then you go back around and you do more work and you have more experiences. And then you come back to that same idea with a different perspective. And I feel like that's what's happened. I don't feel like I was deep enough in my business. I was just starting a business. I didn't have any kind of infrastructure. I didn't have any kind of following. I didn't have any kind of confidence to go out there and do this. And I actually tried to do this now that I think about it back in my Lucky Brand days, like maybe 10 years ago. But that was before Zoom and all these ways to do things interactively. And, people weren't really super comfortable with inviting a stranger into their closet. And
Mhm.
the time involved in doing that to travel somewhere made it have to be probably a little more expensive than, I had to bring my rolling rack and show up in your closet to do this with you. Whereas now you can just have your laptop or even your phone, right? So,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
all trusting that when the time comes, it'll evolve and just to let it go. That's my big thing is let it go and the universe will show it to you when it's the right time. When
Mhm.
we force something, it usually falls flat.
Yeah. And we see that a lot so we have a Facebook group for Bodygraph Chart, which you're going to want to join. I'll put the link in the show notes for you because it's an awesome group. And there can be so much stress over niching down. I got to choose a niche. I got to choose a niche. I got to choose a niche. And if you're just starting out, like you're going to naturally niche down as you grow in your business because your people need time to find you. And like Kathy's saying, she had all of this stuff percolating in her life. All of her gifts and talents from all of the careers that she's had have been percolating with her human design. And now the time is right and something different is coming of it. But in the beginning, human design can be your niche. Yes, you're going to gravitate towards different aspects of human design, but just let it marinate. Just let it marinate and don't stress over it, I think is really important for us to remember in all business,
Yeah.
not just in human design.
And definitely join the group. I was just telling another group that I was in, I was actually on a call in another human design professionals community and was going to come to your call. And so when I was on the calls, somehow it came up, I was going to this call. And I told them, I said, you want to join this group because honestly, and I mean this sincerely, Vicki, the things that you share in that group are worth the price of the Bodygraph software, even if you didn't use the software. I mean, honestly, I pay more for other communities that I'm in than
Hmm.
I pay for my software. Well, especially now because I have affiliate links, so I don't really pay for my software anymore. I get enough in affiliate payments from people who have used my discount code and my affiliate link to join. And then, obviously I'm making money with it with my reports that I'm still working
Yes.
on my big one, I keep saying, which
That's
I've
all
already
right.
decided as soon as I finish it, I'm going to pick it apart into a
Yeah,
bunch of little,
exactly.
it's
Start another
probably
one.
My big one is probably only going to be like for first line projectors.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause it's so like meaty and deep. So,
But it's surprising because sometimes people, like I know for me, people who've had readings or people who are getting ready to have it, like sometimes they think they want that. So I think there
yeah,
can be a place for that type of report. But I'm just going to
right.
bring you along, the listener, if you're like, oh my God, what are they talking about? So with Bodygraph Chart software, you can embed the human design chart into your site, which is really important because you don't want to be sending people to another website to get their charts. I know that this is a thing where people say, well, just go to XYZ site and grab your chart and then bring it back to me. Well, lots of times that XYZ site is going to sell that person something. So you're not going to get the business from that again. So that's a thing. And like Kathy said in the beginning, you can brand the chart to your own colors, all of those things. And what she's talking about now are the reports. So you can build lead magnets and free reports and paid reports and build passive income streams and all of the things with Bodygraph Chart software. And she also mentioned that she's an affiliate. So with our affiliate program, you get a 30% kickback on anyone who joins through your affiliate link. And Kathy is like a master affiliate for Bodygraph and other things. I see you out there affiliating for Karen as well. So yeah, you're so great at it. It's amazing.
Well, that's an important thing when you're an undefined sacral type, right? Is to
Mm-hmm.
have, and I think it's important for everyone, but especially, we need to be able to know that if we're not feeling, if life gets in the way, we don't have to just power through because we have no other way to source income.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, this last couple of months, I've really had to step back because of stuff going on in my personal life that, I'm able to maintain, but there's no emphasis. There has not been and I think I've done a pretty good job of keeping up with all the things that I'm keeping up with, but as far as putting myself out there and bringing in new clients and that sort of thing, sometimes you got to step back a little bit because life has
Mm-hmm.
little curveballs or whatever. But I will also say one of the things that I love about the Bodygraph chart software is I have made this beautiful big banner that I take with me to in-person events for mini readings. And I have a QR code that takes them right to my website. And when they enter it in their phone to get their chart so they can see it on their phone, I can then pull it up on my MacBook and look at it there. And we have this whole thing. I don't have to say, okay, get your chart now, send either,
Mm-hmm.
one of us has to get it, send it to the other one. It makes it so much easier. Nobody has to print anything. There's this connectivity to it all that is really, and then I can just say, okay, there was your 15 minutes worth of what I'm going to tell you now. Now, if you want to go deeper, here's these different things that you can download. And I have a free PDF with descriptions. I have a very simple report that explains how their human design chart is configured and how it all works. And then I have a quantum human design language report. So,
And it just makes it look so professional. It makes it so professional, not look professional. It is professional. Like that's what you want to be dealing with when you're dealing with someone, when you're hiring someone, right? So I love how you're using all of the pieces of the system. Okay, so I would love to know just some things for fun. Are you a reader?
I am a reader, but I have not been reading as much as I used to. My big fun thing I like to do now is I have all these Kindle books that I kind of go back and forth. I've found that if you use Alexa, she can read to you.
Oh,
So I oftentimes get a Kindle book and I can read it for a little while, but then when I start to, I have a bit of I don't know. I'm right arrow mind, and left arrow body. So I often need to be moving,
yeah.
and that's hard when you're reading. So I oftentimes take things in better through the audio when I
Mhm.
can be doing something. So I can have Alexa read it to me for a while. So that's fun. And I just finished reading, and I call it reading in air quotes because I don't think I read very much of it. But Essentialism was the name of the book, and I don't remember if
I
it's
love that
by, but have
book.
you read it? You might have
Yeah,
been the one. Were you the one talking about it on something? Somebody talked about it in
maybe.
a group, and then I was like, oh, let me get that one. And
Yeah.
so that was interesting, and that made me really think about what am I what am I putting my time into in
Yes.
life and in my business? And that tied in a lot with a book I read about maybe 4 or 6 months ago. The It was the follow-up to The Big Leap, and it's either called The Zone of Genius or The
Yeah,
Genius
Genius
by
Zone.
Dave
Yeah.
Hendricks. Yeah, Genius Zone.
Yes.
And so really thinking about how am I spending my time? I had somebody who wanted me to help them do their website. And I was like, oh, that could be fun. And I was like, no, that's not my zone of genius. I've already learned how to do that by doing my own.
Yeah.
And even that's exhausting me. And now, like I'm, so no, I'm not going to do that. That's going to take me away from where I want to be spending my time. Just focus on what's essential. So
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really good conversation for anyone in business too, because one of the episodes that I just recorded, and I can't give you the episode number because as Kathy and I are recording this, the podcast hasn't launched yet. So it's a surprise to us what order it's going to go in. But there is an episode in the first 10 episodes about what to delegate and how to figure out what tasks need to be delegated in your business in order for you to scale. And it's so important that we stay in our own lane and focus on the needle movers in our business. You think how easy it is, especially when you have energy in your design, how easy it is to be able to just distract yourself all day long with all of the things that should or need to be done in your business. And before you know it, you've spent all day, I can anyway, trying to figure out a tech thing that breaks my brain. Someone else could have done it in an hour and I could have created another report to sell. Like it's a really important thing to consider if you're in business.
yeah. Or, I did that a lot with Bodygraph Chart in the beginning because I was like, oh, I can figure this out. I can figure this
Mm-hmm.
out. And I spent so much time trying to figure it out and forcing something that was not working well. And then all of a sudden they're like, here's this new update. And now blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't need to figure that out, but it is good for our, especially more mature brains to have
Yes.
challenges from time to time. Although my brain is more mature than yours. I'll say it that way.
Well, they're like you said, the updates, they're always coming out with new updates, like so many updates. My planetary report is like 1,690 pages of content. And then like 3 days later, they release the update. I'm like, oh my gosh. But it was a good practice for me, right? So I
Yes.
think it's interesting, in the very beginning with Bodygraph Chart, I signed up for a subscription and I couldn't make my brain work with the tech. I was very, very new in human design. And I felt like I didn't know enough to create my own reports, which was probably untrue. But I struggled with the tech of it. And I remember Giddis, who is the founder, got on a call with me for feedback. And I thought it was ludicrous, but like, that's how much this company cares. Like, it's still the same 6 or 7 people that have always been with him. And he still gets on calls to walk people through. Like now he's auditing people's websites and talking about SEO and like
Yeah,
so much
I've seen that.
training.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
And I want to just say, yeah, because he's fabulous. I was on a call where I was asking about something and I said, and I was explaining a little of my frustration because I've had this weird, like conflict of how I feel because I'd be frustrated with things, but at the same time, I would like so adored the way that they run
Yeah.
the business and how they were doing things. And so I was like, I mean, just people like me, we're just so used to Canva and we can do this. And he's like, oh, would you show me? And so I shared my screen and showed him what I could do in Canva with creating a brand kit. And he's like, oh, I think we can do that. And I was like, so I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I was like, look, see, and now anytime I do something, I can just tell it, these are my colors, these are my fonts, and they're right there, and I don't have to. He's like, oh, and he's like talking to Algus, and he's like, can we do that? And he's like, yeah, I think so. So it's great the way they're
Yeah.
so responsive to people and stuff.
Yeah,
So
they take
now
all
it's
of the
there.
feedback. It's amazing. Like I've never seen a company like it.
Yeah,
It's very, very refreshing. So yeah.
yeah.
Are you studying anything right now? Taking a break?
I'm always I'm always studying on my own. Whether there's a specific something I'm studying at the moment, that goes back and forth. I'm really trying to deepen my understanding of variables through my own
Hmm.
thing. And I feel like life is human design is an experiment, right?
Mhm.
So life is my campus. And I have been looking at perspective so much lately because for a long time I ignored it. Even when they talk about, learning your variables, everybody talks about PHS, everybody talks about environments, but how many people really talk about perspective?
Mhm.
And when I started to really understand the dynamics in my relationship, because that's another one of my jams, I love looking at relationships and deconstructing the energy to where you can see the stories your mind is making up to explain how you feel when
Mhm.
it's really just the energy. I have a husband who has survival perspective. I
Mm.
have needs, wants perspective, and my daughter, our adult daughter, has possibilities,
Mm.
right? So I can see what everybody needs and wants. My husband feels like it's all coming out of his pocket, right? Because my daughter's constantly talking about the possibilities she sees in life in a way that he feels he's supposed to fund because I'm telling him what she needs and wants. And like understanding that perspective has really been allowed me to step back. So I've been really looking at that stuff and just seeing how this new layer for me is really looking at letting people be who they are here to be. Now that I'm
Mm.
really trusting myself, I cannot feel like I need to change anybody, right? Letting
Mhm.
go of my expectations of other people. So I'm studying that in life and with other people and trying to take people along on that journey.
Mhm.
So I did a whole bunch of courses last year. And so at the moment, I'm not enrolled in anything.
Yeah. But there's so much study that can be done, like you said, through
Yeah.
life, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the variables. They're so fascinating. There's so many layers to them as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. All the nuances. We could study human design for 30 years and probably never know it all, right?
And I've talked to people who have been doing it for a really long time and the way that it's evolved. So time anybody acts like it's static knowledge, that's a turn off for me because there's so many layers to it. In
Mhm.
fact, I'm talking to Chetan Parkin at the end of the month, and he's going to talk about how he uses human design to release karma and genetic
Wow.
trauma and stuff like that. So like that's interesting to me, right? So like
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. So I feel like I'm always learning through the conversations I have with people on my podcast.
So, what is your podcast? Where can people find you?
It's called Real Human Design Stories, and you can watch it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Kathy Bochonko, Bochonko, and that's Kathy with a K. And you can find it at all your favorite podcast platforms. And a new thing now is you can sponsor my podcast, which really helps.
Yay. Yeah.
So yeah, and you can do that for as little as 99 cents a month through the Spotify platform, um, podcast platform.
Nice. Nice. Because you have conversations with a lot of people who've been around human design for quite some time or quite deep into human design, and your podcasts are pretty long, right? So, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
bargain for somebody to be able to sponsor your podcast. I love that you're doing that.
Yeah. And that helps me to be able to continue to do so. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've talked to, like I've mentioned a couple. One of my other favorite ones recently was Denise Matthews, who, if you're into following the transits, her
Mhm.
transit reports lately have been so like amazing. I mean, I've talked to Robin Wynn, I've talked to Kim Gould. Um, there's lots of great people I'm forgetting, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
and so many great people you've never heard of.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And it's just interesting to hear people's stories with human design
Yeah.
because
Is that
everybody has a different way of looking at it.
And that's the concept that we start with is how did you find it? And you're going to be on in
Yes. Yeah.
September, and we'll hear about how you found human design and what kind of impact it had on you originally. And that's always fun to see like how people resisted or right away embraced it. And
Yeah, I'm always jealous of the people who have like some come to Jesus moment with their human design when they first discover it. I'm like, I'm kind of jealous of that. Maybe in my next life I'll have a come to Jesus moment with something like that.
I don't know.
But
Some of those are not that exciting.
yeah,
They're kind of
exactly.
scary,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're tower moments.
Mm,
Tower card moments,
yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap this up because we've been talking for quite a while. I could talk to you forever, I feel like. So we'll have to connect in the Facebook group again.
I am Chatty
And
Cathy.
yeah. And we will link in the show notes to Kathy's website and her Facebook and her podcast and all of the things so that you'll be able to hunt her down and discover all of the human design goodness that she offers. So thanks for being here, Kathy.
Thanks for having me.